So then you know it's doing
Correct.
something.
That's what I need to know. Okay,
Kelvin.
the Unicode Kelvins. Dang it, guys. Do not make a meme in freaking Discord about unicorn, please.
I see a t-shirt.
Dude, shut up, Ryan.
Best part of hacking when you can just, critical think, right?
No! Yeah. Dude.
All right, hackers, here's the deal. Before you skip forward, give me like 2 seconds to give you a takeaway. Okay, here it is. ThreatLocker Detect is the best EDR around. They have a ton of tool integrations. The alerts are high signal, so you're not swimming in a bunch of garbage. And both alerting and remediation actions are super customizable. It's definitely the one you want. Okay, that's it. Skip forward if you must, but I do feel like you should know why I think that, right? Well, we've talked a lot about the ThreatLocker suite, and frankly, they're the best implemented tools around from a technical perspective. With this EDR, they're focusing a lot on customization and high signal stuff like PowerShell activity, log deletion, sketchy RDP sessions, stuff that I have wished many times EDRs were not detecting actively, okay? And while it does work out of the box, it also gives you, the experienced purple teamer, the tools you need to implement custom logic to lock hackers out of your network at the first sign of trouble. That trouble is the trouble that you are most qualified to recognize, so they're equipping you to deal with it right away. They're definitely the ones you guys want to go with if you're looking for a new EDR tool. All right, that's it. Let's go back to the show. All right, cool. Ryan, dude, come here, man. Hey. Thank you so much for today. I just had a fantastic day up in Reston with Ryan Barnett. And we're here at the Akamai offices after battling our computer systems for a while to try to get the recording equipment in place. Finally able to record the episode. Ryan, dude, I'm looking at this doc. You prepped a lot. I so appreciate that.
Well,
yeah.
I listen to the pod, as you well know, and I love all the stories, especially war stories and all that stuff. And so once you told me the dates, I was like, okay, I got time. let me go through the files here and stuff I thought would be interesting for everybody and for us to talk about. So,
dude, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a new kind of episode. A lot of times we have people that are actively hunting in the bug bounty scene, and you are on the receiving side of a lot of these reports, right? And and you see them, what's coming through the Akamai bug bounty queue, and then you also see the traffic that's happening live in the Akamai network. So very exciting stuff. But before we get into too much of the details, you got to cut your teeth with a bounty, with a bug that you found, okay?
Yeah.
And we do have a little bit of a twist on this for you today, because there's a bug that you found here, but there's also a couple bugs that you've triaged that you were excited about. So let's do a proof of concept here. Let's POC or GTFO and tell me what you got.
So the first one was interesting because it was actually an accidental finding, which sometimes that happens, right? You're using an app.
Yeah.
So this was a number of years ago, but I was using online blogging software, TypePad. I'm in the middle of talking about some research, right, on cross-site scripting. I'm typing up, so I'm in the editor. And out of nowhere, get popped up, redirected to a third-party website.
Oh, man.
And of course, my spidey sense is like, wait, what's going on? Refresh, doing it again, it happens again. And then I stopped and I looked at where it was redirecting me to, and I said, whoa. This was from a blog post I did a week ago. I said, wait a second. So the short of this is I had to get out some tools to look at what was going on and see where my traffic was going. So what happened was a week before, I did a blog post talking about cross-site scripting, and there were cross-site scripting tags that were in user agent headers. So I'm putting it into the blog, and when I put it in the blog, I made sure to HTML entity encode. Don't treat it as code.
As you would, yeah.
I did everything by the book. And so the problem was, what was interesting, once I tracked this down, was in TypePad, they have all these plugins. And what they want to do is, as you're typing as an editor, it would show you, oh, we see the content you're doing. Here are some related posts if you want to cross-link.
Okay.
So it cross-linked with one of my former posts. Well, what happens is this third party, and it's fixed, so obviously, so I can say it was called Zemanta. They had API clients. They come and scrape your content. When they scraped it, it was the rendered content. So as I'm typing and they said, oh, we have a suggestion, here it comes back in JSON, non-HTML entity encoded. And then the other key piece was the plugin, when it got that JSON, it wrapped it, it treated it as HTML. So it popped and I was like, crap. So two things. Number one, vulnerability disclosure. I worked with them.
Mhm.
They fixed it. I guess that's one advantage of the kind of SaaS platforms, that they don't have to give patches to people. They just
Yeah.
fixed it, boom, done.
Across the board.
Yeah, treat it as text, it was fixed.
Mm.
But for me, that day forward, I do pictures of exploit code. I don't do text. So you never know, there could be an API. And today it's like even worse, right? With all these API,
Oh, yeah.
AI agents crawling, and you don't know what they're doing with your data or how they make
I
changes.
mean, even with
So,
pictures nowadays, sometimes something will OCR
Yeah.
it, you know,
no,
and it like,
that's true.
but yeah, I
true.
mean, I think that's definitely the safest way to go. But then for me, when I'm trying to hack something, right, on the other side of the board, I'm like, oh, let me copy this. No, it's a picture. You
Yeah.
know? I'm like,
yeah,
oh, geez.
It's a balance.
It is.
But that showed me, it's like you don't know who's coming to grab that content. So that was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
tricky.
Absolutely, man. And I think one of the unique things that we've discussed time and time again is like how much you see the way that the internet is connected from across all of these different, you know, pieces, right? You know, somebody puts in a piece of data here and somehow it ends up, you know, in your client's log somehow, and it's causing a problem somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Um,
All the blind stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You put it in, it'll pop out. Who knows where?
I can't imagine how many websites have alert one, you know, just like popping up on the back end, you
Yeah.
know, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of funky, but nobody like took the time to do
Yeah.
a blind XSS payload or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
tons of our customers with SIMs and looking at logs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Custom stuff in the Sims as well. You know, it can pop anywhere. Okay, so you got Chatscatter and you got abusing third-party analytics.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Well, we can cover both. They're fast.
Yeah.
Again, so these were ones I triaged. So
Mhm.
cross-site scripting problem.
Mhm.
Once it comes through, you know, whoever's doing the bug bounty program, who's our customer, back to us. So these two different ones. One looking at it was abusing some JavaScript analytic code.
Okay.
So this fits in with all bug
everywhere.
hunters that you
Mhm.
got to look and say, okay, what are all these URLs? JavaScript's calling up. Look at these endpoints. What are they doing? And here I was actually looking through the code, because what they figured out was there was a function in the JavaScript that was pulled up where it was talking about a mod configuration override set to true.
Oh, geez.
So the attacker just puts it in a query string. So instead of passing in JavaScript, passes it in a query string. And then it's this long kind of serialized configuration to say, oh, turn it on. And by the way, here's a script, which is my hacker script, which pulled it up. But like from our perspective, those aren't normal payloads that we see.
Yeah.
So it's really abusing that default config.
Yeah.
The short one there is, of course, we helped the customer to tell them what was going on. You know, we updated their configs, but the vendor silently fixed it.
Of course,
Because you're back to the SaaS platform though. They just went and tweaked it. So that's where Wayback saves you, of course, because I can go back and say, this is what it was.
Right.
It saved
It
me.
was like this.
It was like this. And then the last one, called Chatscatter. Again, working with the customer, there was some cross-site scripting stuff coming in. Once I was kind of triaging, looking at it, cross-site scripting coming in a certain query string parameter, but the parameter was an entire long payload. It was a URI from not our customer site, third-party site. So I had to start tracing it back. So you go to what that other site was and looking through and then trying to tie back, how does this relate to our customer? It was a chat widget. So you get to that page, hey, pop-up, can we help you? We want to talk to you. So what's interesting
those
is...
are everywhere nowadays too.
Yeah,
with
everything.
AI. Yeah.
Right? They pop up. But so again, for bug hunters, knowing what happens there, as soon as you load that in your browser, it can be making backend API calls. And what it was doing is grabbing the entire URI and beaconing to our customer. So what I was seeing was telemetry, this backscatter or chat scatter of bug hunters and real attackers attacking cross-site scripting, and it immediately sends it off to us and we see it. So they're not attacking our customer, but we saw. So for me, interesting conversation, with our customer.
Smack the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it all the time, man.
With our customer to say, look, you do not have a vulnerability. Your customer is using your software being attacked. And I did confirm some of the cross-site scripting worked.
Yeah.
And I said, you might want to tell them.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting situation. These are smaller companies who don't have security teams, and they can misinterpret and say, well, this is because of your software. And so it was up to them. I don't know who all they reached out to, but we had to, pass on the information as a good net citizen and say, you may want to tell those people.
Well, I think something, you see a lot of client-side stuff by nature of what you're doing there. And I think that analytics, those analytics providers. You know,
Right.
they're integrate. I mean, sometimes you go into some of these sites and they've got like 10 of them, right?
Mhm.
And some of the ones that are, I mean, not to say that there isn't a vulnerability out there in like Google Tag Manager or something. I'm sure there is.
Right.
Somebody can find, not me. But you know, in some of these other sketchy analytics plugins, there are a lot of weird configuration overrides.
Yep.
Why are you parsing this URL parameter? You know, like
Yep.
I'll never forget. I was at a live hacking event and there was this piece of scope that everybody struggled with because there just wasn't very much there, right? And they were like, there's not a lot of functionality. We can't really do anything. And somebody ended up finding like a beautiful DOM XSS that affected every single page of that site because of this weird analytics thing that they
Nice.
found. And it was just taking a URL parameter and like you said, importing a JavaScript file. So
Yeah.
they're out there.
Yeah.
They exist.
And it's a challenge because that's usually a totally different team than
Oh,
the
yeah.
app team, and they're kind of forcing in certain analytics stuff for business.
Yeah, for marketing,
Insights.
analytics.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
It's and they probably don't necessarily go through the same vendor vetting as like some of the other
Right.
places do. And actually, come to think of it, I think I've mentioned this on the pod a couple times, but I'm thinking about a specific target where you know, is a very high security target that has to be by nature of their industry. And yeah, you know, we spent so much time poking at the client side of this thing. And then of course the hole is in the third-party software that they just kind of threw in there as like,
Yep.
let me add this chatbot, let me add this analytics, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up popping a bunch of vulns because of that vulnerable analytics piece.
Yeah. And
It's
for
crazy, man.
other folks you've had on the show,
Yeah.
we were just talking about Lupin,
Yeah.
like supply chain. That's
Yeah.
all this stuff. And
Oh,
they're adding
geez.
stuff in. Yeah. Different vectors on how
Yeah.
to do it.
Lots of different stuff there. Okay, so the meat of the let me back up. I always get tempted, you know, because we get in the vibe from the vuln talk.
Yes.
I always forget to come back to the introduction, and then when I do, my dad always messages me and he's like, "Justin, you forgot to introduce," and I'm like, "Why are you watching this 20 minutes in anyway, Dad? You don't understand anything that's happening." But shout out to Dad. Thank you for watching episodes and keeping me in line with that. So with that, I'll back up, guys. This is Ryan Barnett. He's an OG in the Defender space. And actually, we found out recently that I bought your book back in 2017 when I was first learning how to hack. I was like, I got to get this, you know, application defenders cookbook,
Right.
and you know, try to like figure out exactly what I'm up against here.
Right.
And I went to my Amazon history and it bought in 2017. I was like, no way, that's my boy Ryan.
Perfect.
So thank you for the content you put out. Really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, your track record speaks for itself. You're at Mod Security. You're at Akamai now as a principal researcher for like 10 years.
A decade. Yeah.
Wow, dude. And we were at lunch before this. We went out and grabbed lunch before, and I was just telling him like, that's inspiring because, you know, so many, you know, we really value highly technical people here on the podcast. And you know, so many people, especially in a you know, bigger company where it would be easy to go up the ladder a little bit, you know, it takes a lot of grit to stick to you know,
Well, it's
a
a
researcher
passion.
position. It is.
It's a passion. I love research.
Yeah, and you did a lot of it for a long time.
Thank you. We're also joking about persistence,
Yeah.
both for bug hunters and also on the defensive side. Persistence is key.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, man. Well, you know, obviously you're working with Akamai. The gut feeling when we hear the word Akamai is terror, you know, from the bug bounty hunter. Like, oh shit, did I just get my whole IP burned again? Like, why can't I get my cross-site scripting payload through?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, one of the things we had here in the doc as far as discussion goes is this bug bounty versus WAF. Like, how do we balance these two things in the industry? And you know, sometimes it is like we're juxtaposed. You know, it's like we're up against each other here. You know, but we often forget that we're all on the same team. So I guess what are some things you want hackers to know about that dynamic of you know, we're as bug bounty hunters, we're on the same team, but we're going up against you guys all the time.
Yeah. So a couple different kind of discussion points, and we can take different angles. One of the main one we always start with is our customers, and particularly when they're working in bug bounty, it's like what is their main goal? Now everybody intuitively jumps to to find vulns. That's why you do bug bounty, which it is, but it's not every use case. Or some start there and they move to a different use case. So you can look at it as vulnerability enumeration. If that's their main goal, then they want bug hunters to find the bugs. So then if we're in the middle there, how do they want us to treat the traffic? Right? So part of that is just understanding what the customers want and what their goal is. So in that scenario, if that's their goal, we need to figure out ways to allow bug hunters to get by what we're doing. Just Olay, let you through. So there's ways they can do that for commercial scanning companies, right?
Okay. I like where this is going, Ryan.
Yes. No. But that's because they have registered IP space. Right. So it's like, oh, your Qualys, your Whitehat, your Verica, your whoever. We know your IPs, and it's easy in the product to do a bypass list. So if you're coming from this trusted space, okay, you can get through.
Sure.
As everybody knows who's listening to this, you can't use your IP, right? That's ephemeral.
Yeah.
And you sometimes have to hop and go around. So there's really not a good mechanism to let somebody go through if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Now, the other category is that we have of customers are, it's not just about finding vulns. It is, but there's a matter of exploitivity of it. Like we have to prove that you can get to this. And that's where they want WAF to act like normal and treat bug hunters like they would anybody else and do whatever you're going to do. Block that request, mess with the IP, do whatever. It's very interesting. We had conversations with some of these customers to understand, like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But they want to do attacker simulation.
Yeah, and they want it to be as real world,
Right.
And it's a balance.
Because then they can prove this is exploitable, and there's an issue with the WAF blocking it, because if they get to that, there's WAF bypass.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of them figuring out priority, because they may have a list of things that they found internally, SAST and all these other things. And they're like, okay, we have this pile of things we have to fix. Which ones do we do first? Oh, WAF's helping us with some coverage here. Let's delay that a week or so. But if you prove bug hunters can get to it, bypass WAF here, oh crap. Real threat actors can do that. Now we have to bump you up the stack.
Suddenly becomes, and I mean, that's what all of security is, right? There's always improvements that need to be made somewhere in the system, right? And so that's a good point. If you are able to bypass the WAF, it helps with the whole triaging of issues, right? Triage in a different sense, assigning the severity and the priority of these various things you need to address in your security program.
Right.
Dude, I hate it a little bit though. Like, come on, I can bypass this, Ryan. I can. I'm spending so much time.
Yeah. There's a number of things too that we talked about there on. From an external perspective, people see WAF that are really a lot of separate products tied together. We have things that look for just how fast people are going, and the customers can figure out there's a rate controls.
Yeah.
They're going too fast.
Familiar with that one.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get blocked for a little while. Then there's client reputation, and that's the biggest thorn for the bug hunters.
Yes, it is.
Because it's more persistent. It doesn't have to be just the website you're interacting with where you were bug hunting, because now Akamai is giving that IP a global score. And then other people who have client reputation can choose to use that score. It's not WAF blocking you, it's WAF saying, hey, here's the score, and then the customer can choose what they want to do. And some people want to get aggressive and say, if you've attacked another customer, I don't want you to attack me, and we blocked you there.
Yeah, dude, that's a pain. And that's what, there's always there's a little meme that goes around in the bug bounty community of like, oh, you're hacking. All of a sudden, your wife in the other room is like, Justin, why can't I get on, whatever website? I'm like,
I can't shop at
Costco. Yeah, I know. I'm like, dang it, what did I do?
Yeah. So that's an issue.
It is. And I think but I mean, like you said, there's two sides of this, of a same coin, right? We do want to try to show what is actually exploitable live, and at the end of the day, I think that's probably the thing that aligns best with the bug bounty methodology, right? The POC or GTFO world, right? But man, it would be nice to get around it sometimes. and you asked me an interesting question over lunch. You said, hey, Justin, would you rather have some way to bypass Akamai, right? And like, say we did like some, certificate-based authentication, and we were able to get, trusted testers past Akamai,
right?
And take a lower bounty, or would you rather just POC or GTFO it? And I'm like, oh,
what's option C?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, but the reason why that comes up, again, a lot of bug hunters maybe don't have the same conversations we do with our customers, right? And it's for them to understand it was that second category we talked about, that if they're doing threat actor simulation, as not the primary, it's always about vulns, but that aspect, they may be setting their bounties in accordance with that, that it is raising your cost. You know, yeah, there's a chance for a dupe. Yeah, you gotta go through different VPS. Like you have to do extra work, but you're getting this amount. So yeah, I don't know. That's a question for every bug hunter to have to decide for themselves. Would you take door number one?
Oh no, it's painful, man. And I do like the way you've broken it down here. I'll just repeat this back for the listener. You know, there are two types of organizations really. One that prioritize vulnerability enumeration, right? That's, you know, bug bounty hunters being able to say, hey, there is a vulnerability here, but the WAF is just a thorn in my side. You know, if I spend 2 hours, I can bypass it, but you'd rather me spend time enumerating other vulnerabilities, right? That sort of organization would prioritize that sort of behavior. And then there's the prevention of exploitation attempts, right? Types of organizations where they really just want POC or GTFO and let me, you know, assign severity and triage these issues. So it's a very interesting, you know, description of the industry that you've set up, and I think it's very accurate. Very cool, man. There's a lot of things that I would love to I'd love to get to here. So I think the next one that we'll hop into is this whole concept of virtual patching, right? Where the WAF is being used to wall off specific endpoints as 0 days, you know, come out, and sometimes it's something that will solve the problem. Sometimes there's, you know, ways you can path traverse around it and stuff like that. How much of this is your main focus at Akamai? Like, and how have you seen customers implement this effectively?
So 2 levels. The real key here, virtual patching as a term, sometimes people really don't like.
Oh, really?
And and I understand why. And really, this falls in the same bucket everybody talks about. If an organization is deciding not to actually fix code and do anything else, you're like, you sure?
Yeah.
So a virtual patch, some people can misconstrue, oh, it's patched. It's like, no, the code's not patched. And so
we should rebrand it temporary virtual patch, you know, like.
But that's a key thing. It should be temporary. Give you time to fix the code, right? So anyways, the key here is how WAFs typically work out of the box as attack detection systems. They look for bad stuff coming in, right? And another thing, thinking about coming on the pod, talking with you and thinking about meta discussions, like WAFs live in a sources world. Bug hunters live in a sinks world. Right. And
that is a good line, Ryan. That is a good line. Put that in a short. Put that in a short, team.
It's true, because they're different views. They're all part of the process. And so we're looking at data coming in, attacks. Another way I talk, like in the industry with our customers, they're used to like MITRE and CWE discussions. WAFs, we live in a KPEC discussion. And you know, you have to make those correlations. So here, think of WAF as a tool. Really, the paradigm changes is once a vulnerability is known. Like when traffic's just going and people put a WAF in front and we have our default stuff there, sure, we can see a lot of bad stuff in whack-a-mole. We don't know if, where, when there's a vuln. Now, if they can signal to us, oh, we know there's a vuln here because we get a bug bounty report, they do pen tests, they do code review, then think of WAF as a tool to implement some sort of mitigation to, you know, reduce risk, right? The other one we talked about is like SharePoint stuff that just comes out.
Exactly.
It's the same discussion. It's just we didn't get that from a customer. We got it from Microsoft, third party. But vulnerability intelligence, custom logic, quasi virtual patch. The key here too, like you were saying, how good is it to do that, and how long? Like what's the half-life of a virtual patch? Is how you're choosing what logic to put in. Still, if you're still trying to negative security stuff, it's not as good. It's tricky though to figure out what should the payload be. Like we'd love to do positive security. We don't know the app necessarily. So it's key on the vulnerability details to really figure out how to do that. So.
Yeah. Two directions I'd like to go with that. One, I want to go back to the sources and sinks world. So we'll circle back around to that. But you know, staying on topic of virtual patching, there are scenarios though when you're standing up a third-party software And that third-party software doesn't have, you don't have the ability to patch that live,
not your code.
And you can put Akamai in front of it and wall off certain endpoints, but then, that's pretty much the extent of what you can do until the vendor patches.
Right. And
then, this is kind of where these virtual patches become a little bit more of a permanent solution, right? If you cannot get that software to patch. There's been a couple of vulnerabilities that I've found in the past where, people are abusing the WAF to just see like, okay, well, you can't access /debug anymore, but really, there's path traversals, there's other ways of accessing those endpoints, maybe method overrides or whatever, or path overrides that you can utilize to get at them. So it's a tricky balance between that, right?
Yeah, it's another thing we talked about, maybe we'll loop back to it. It's the whole hacking resistance discussion.
Yeah.
Because whatever—
This is a really good point.
Yeah, whatever security logic you're putting in—
I'm going to grab my notebook really quick. Sure. Keep going.
Yeah. Whatever security logic you're putting in, it's a question of like, how strong is that against what type of attacks to do evasions, right? To get around it, like you were mentioning. A lot of these too depend on what's the category of the problem. Sometimes there's discussions, oh, we found this problem, and quote unquote, is this WAFable? Like, can we do something? It's like, that's more of an auth problem. Access control, auth, like those are things that when you have a third-party system, we don't have the knowledge or the insights and to know exactly what should be done there, right? So it's not that a WAF can fix everything, but some stuff would fit in there nice. Hacking resistance, it's like, okay, we think that this would hold up, but if you have a persistent attacker that's banging, who knows how long that this can hold up, right?
And it's a good way to simulate that in the bug bounty world, right? Like, we are persistent because we're motivated actors, because we're getting motivation from the money. And just like APTs are getting motivation from whatever they're getting motivation from. So I think it is a cool simulation. And definitely there's this world in which having a WAF in front of your assets makes you that much more annoying to hack, where the hacker will just go hack something that's less annoying to hack.
Potentially, whether it's real threat actors that, like you said, oh, here's the new CVE of the day.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's this company or that company. No. I just want to upload my web shell.
Exactly.
They'll just move on.
You're weeding out all your botnet, your ransomware actors there.
There's a lot of noise that you can just,
Yeah, that's good. Swinging back around to your quote saying that, WAFs live in the source world and hackers kind of live in the sync world, or at least the connection world between the two. I think that's super pivotal for bug bounty hunters to understand. And now we get to do this segment, Ryan, where I'm not sure how this is going to be for you as an Akamai employee, but I kind of wanted to talk about what seems to me to be an unfixable problem in the WAF world, which is that you don't know, what's going to happen on the flip side of your WAF, right? On the back end. And so, you have to make assumptions that especially in the XSS world makes it very, very hard, especially if you're doing context aware, blocking. It makes it very difficult for a WAF to perform properly. So the example that I'll often give is this. Let's say I've got an image tag. Image tags need to be able to flow through the WAF as a part of user supplied input. It's very common. And maybe, like an attribute, a non-malicious attribute such as X is also allowed, right? And so let's say you do something like this, X equals double quote, right? And then you do %22. And X equals double quote %22, you're inside of the HTML attribute context, right? And then, you can put anything inside of that X attribute and it's not going to be malicious, right? But so the WAF thinks, okay, now we're inside of this X attribute. So if I have something, / on error equals alert 1, and then double quote again, right? That's all just a part of the X attribute. But really, the backend is decoding that %22 or the %2522.
Right.
And the mismatch, and sometimes it's inverse, right? Sometimes the WAF will be smart about it and say, okay, well, I know that %22 is also a double quote, so I'm gonna decode that. Well, then you can flip it on its head, and say, okay, well, now you think that I'm not in an attribute, but I am in an attribute, right? And so there's lots of ways that you can sort of flip that on its head. And I know you've seen that problem before.
Oh yeah.
Like
just yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Oh, geez. I mean, is there some sort of solution to this, or is this just something that you guys are going to have to continue playing a whack-a-mole game with?
A combination
Yeah.
of it. Getting back to the whole whack-a-mole and how we were joking before, where it's like, okay, I've been doing WAF now 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Too long. And at Blackhat, can't remember, 2011, I gave a talk called Cross-Site Scripting Street-Fight.
Dude.
And you can
That's
find it. I think it'll
amazing.
probably be in show notes. I think it's in our thing.
Yeah.
So the idea was going through all these stages of WAF. What do I try and do? Let me try this. But then the bug hunter attacker does this. Crap, that doesn't work. Let me try this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the evasion for that. And it's the chess game back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So there's always blacklisting whack-a-mole approach because you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how much coverage are you getting, right?
Yeah.
And then these evasions. Ultimately, where I am today, personally, understanding the limits, because we live in a source world and what we're looking at, the big X factor for us, or what do I want to say, challenges are the black box behind us. And it's not just the customer app. If you think about what we're tasked with, right? Sorry, as defenders of, it can be going to some application tier, ASP, Java,
Sure.
page, like whatever, can do all sorts of decodings potentially. It could go into databases. They may do something and then something different when they pull it out to use it. But then also what you just said, think about browsers.
Yeah.
And then we have to
There's
deal
that
with
layer as well. Yeah.
So a common thing that with the researchers I work with, and we talk about this, and there's also a funny situation, again, this kind of cross-pollination of us attackers and defenders. We hire a lot of bug hunters on the team. And yeah, exactly. And we kind of joke when they come in, we said, look, we brought you because it's the whole kind of know your enemy, so to speak, and how to attack. But then I always throw out the Star Wars Yoda line. I said, you must unlearn what you have learned. And so
Ryan, dude, I gotta work with you, man. Like, this is like amazing. Whoever gets that job, I'm jealous of you to work with Ryan.
So what we're thinking about here, and this is a common phrase that we have to use, is can we as Akamai do customizations for your Snowflake app because you want us to help you protect it? Absolutely. Outside of that, it's best size fits most. We have to figure out, okay, what can we do that will work across every single company, customer and scale? And so a lot of times what you get into is between the app tier, database, web browser, or whatever, who's going to decode what? Is it going to decode once, twice, 3 times?
Mutations, it's
the
like,
issue we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
Data came in, a bunch of stuff was encoded up to 3 times in certain parts. But then by the time it made it into the sync, the thing that was decoded 3 times was fully decoded. Other stuff was not touched, wasn't even decoded once. So we're in a very tough position to match up decodings. So yeah, it's a constant battle to figure out how much to do, how much not to do. And you just have to tackle it from different angles of detection. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the, and I just wanted to mention this for the listener, because I kind of sort of said a lot of code a second ago, was one of the interesting things about HTML attributes is if you start an HTML attribute with a double quote, obviously that double quote becomes the encapsulating, piece for that HTML attribute. But if you start the double quote with the actual text, %22, then there's no encapsulating attribute, right? And you can, a space will terminate that HTML attribute. So there's so many tricks you can do where it's like, okay, we're going to put a double quote at the beginning of this attribute, right? Encoded as %22, and the WAF has to think, okay, well, I think that's a double quote, which makes this a quoted HTML attribute. But actually, if they're not decoding it, then it's not a quoted, it's an unquoted, and there's different terminators. Right. So it's like there's so many layers to that, and it's a very tricky problem.
Definitely. Another key thing I always say is, well, it depends. It always depends on the exact context. Some other phrases I've used in the past, which I think are relevant here. And we're in a world of artificial intelligence. I go old school again. for those people who know Marcus Raynham from a long time ago, he had artificial ignorance. And it's a totally different approach, because when you know certain things that you already know about, you filter those out, anything left over. So we try and take multi approaches to this, because it's very hard to get the context right, because we're not in the sinks.
Yeah.
So we don't really know
Dude,
where
it's
it's
a
going to be
hard job
used.
you're doing, Ryan.
Right.
It's hard, man.
So
yeah.
all I can say is multi-dimensional detections of ways to try and detect this, because you try and do certain things in context. If that doesn't work, you take a step back and you look more general, and you catch a lot of those that get by the other one.
So let me ask you this, this situation that I described with like the HTML attributes, that is something that affects context-aware WAFs, right? And I'm wondering, how far you can get, in your opinion, with just like, regexes or like, blacklists, or really, at the end of the day, it's going to be very hard to get anything through if you're allowing, or to prevent everything from getting through, if you're allowing less than and an alphabet character, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where it kind of reduces down to, I think, in a big way.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a regex for that,
regex serves a purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting off the top of my head, Chomsky, whatever model, that's like you have regex, but you have a higher level grammar. We can't define that higher level so regex serves a purpose, but we realize the limitations. But it serves a purpose because it's fast. You can iterate and do stuff quickly, but we have other ways to look at that data. Going back to what you were saying, especially on client side. I did some things in the past. I think we had talked about mod security. We had these cross-site scripting challenges and I said it in the cross-site scripting street fight presentation. That's like, this is a browser problem. It's like, the app's not properly encoding or output, encoding, escaping data, but ultimately the problem's in the browser. So there are situations, for example, and I think there's some stuff in the doc where some of our customers really want to get into things like content security policy or pushing something like DOM Purify. We can do that from the edge. We can dynamically modify data on the way out because we have separate products that do different things. And we can dynamically put DOM Purify in. So there's all sorts of other things, because I'm like, look, like you said, there's a limit to what you can do with sources. So for our customers that want to get more advanced, say, okay, we can help you and dynamically put that in. So I don't know. It's like more, it's a question of what is WAF? Where does it end?
What is WAF? I love that. Well, it goes to what you are going to talk about in a minute as well here with regards to Unicode normalization. This order of operations, right? Like, because if we put DOM Purify, I'm sure but if we put DOM Purify at the edge, if there's any modification of that data post DOM purification, then it's going to affect the integrity of the work that DOM Purify does. And if you see any, unencoding or anything like that, then DOM Purify becomes, it doesn't work effectively. So man, it is a hard problem to solve, but I think we're going to continue going back and forth as WAF and Bug Hunter and trading punches in the street fight, right?
Yes. Or we have to do our arm wrestle.
Exactly. Yeah, dude. Right at the end, boom. I did want to mention one other thing here, which is going to be interesting. I think that one of the things I'm most excited about is for the onset of hackbots is a WAF bypassing bot. I think that's going to be really interesting. And Kaido, by the time this episode airs, or I'm going to have to cut this segment, we'll see. Kaido will have released this thing called shift agents, where you can, inside of Kaido, create your own hack bot of sorts and delegate a tab.
Give it a task?
You can give it a task, and you can give it a tab in replay. Right? And then it will modify replay, and you can, click through it just like you normally do, forward, back, and see what things it's tried, and then create things. So what I wanted to ask about that was like, I don't know, man, Ryan, you can not answer this. I told you I was going to put the screws to you a little bit on this podcast. What kind of things do we need to have in our arsenal as hackers? What should we know about bypassing WAFs? We talked about encoding already. Is there anything else you can give us?
Oh, no. This may have to be when we're in Vegas at face-to-face get-together. I don't know. That's a good. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, most things are out there.
Yeah.
No, I will say in general, and it's not an Akamai thing.
Yeah.
Is joining different.
I think everybody knows Akamai is the biggest pain in the ass to bypass. It is.
We hope so.
It's very hard. But go ahead.
Yeah. It's when you're joining multiple different techniques together.
Yeah.
And if you go to like even Port Swigger's cheat sheet, cross-site scripting, it's like they have a lot of individual things, but if you start mixing and matching, that's a challenge. Yeah, I mean, outside of that, of course, then it's secrets. We can't take you behind the
come on, Ryan.
The all-powerful.
I know it's in here somewhere. What room? Where do you keep the WAF bypass?
That's down the hall. I got to keep an eye on Justin.
Dang it! With my badge, gotta have access to that.
Yeah.
Well, very, very good, man. Very good.
Yeah.
So I guess we talked a little bit about what it would look like, how hackers often circumvent WAFs. But one of the things we didn't touch on quite as much is this piece of AWS API gateways and using stuff like Fireprox and stuff like that, to get around these IP-based restrictions. And I know that you have mentioned in the past that AWS has this as a part of their terms of service, that we shouldn't be using that. What I want you to say to the bug hunter is, to do it or not to do it, right? It kind of goes to this whole concept of like bug bounty is supposed to be an emulation of attackers, and they're not actively preventing us from using AWS gateway. Do you think it's unethical for an ethical hacker to do that?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it's tough when you know what the acceptable use policy is and you choose to vote. That's a personal decision.
So what you're saying, we should cut this segment? Is that what you're saying?
So speaking in general for a second, like you said, there's a couple tools, right, that can help to automate some of this. But part of the question is, okay, why are you doing this? Well, it's the IP blocking. And so you have to be able to distribute whatever you want to do, workloads, and come different IPs so you're getting around that problem. So there are ways to do that don't violate acceptable use. So another interesting side thing, right? Akamai had purchased Linode a few years back, VPS, right? They have a lot of bug hunters on there. And a lot of people were using like Axiom and those kinds of tools. For a while, I talked to the trust and safety. It wasn't my doing. And they said, I'm on a WebEx with those folks. And they said, hey, we have to cut this because people were running it to hilt. And it was having network problems. So they disallowed Axiom for a little while. But their customers would say, hey, we're going to go somewhere else. We'll go to a different VPS. Right. So they worked with Axiom project folks and said, and there is a document there. It says, hey, everybody, if you're going to run this, here's a way to put some bounds. Here's a few flags that maybe people didn't know about. You can still scan, but you won't take down the network. Right?
Here's a few flags that you didn't know about, clearly.
Hint, read the docs. So there's ways to do all of that. Now, where it gets interesting again is for me, I have to deal with both threat actors and bug hunters. And threat actors are a pain. They have DTPs that they do. Bug hunters, we've joked, we have a frenemy relationship, right? We are all security researchers. You're not my enemy. But the interesting thing is when the TTPs overlap. And what I was seeing is we see attack traffic coming from Amazon API gateway IPs. And there's a lot of overlapping topics here, but how would I know once I investigate this is a bug hunter, right? So I can start to look now if the program says you have to do request header tagging and say HackerOne handle, I can look and say, okay, they're bug hunters, not a big deal. The problem is we were seeing enough traffic where there were no indications that it was bug hunter traffic.
Yeah, a lot of people don't use those headers.
Well, and I said, okay, they might not use the headers, but then I was looking at what was being sent, and it was stuff that was more damaging with SQL injection, dropping tables. And I said, this could be a regular attacker, not bug hunter. So I have to initiate conversations with security teams at AWS. Very similarly, we saw on Cloudflare, people setting up web workers. All they were doing is open proxy, and they would funnel their traffic. So I had to get with Cloudflare, even though competitors, but there's a security, trust, safety. So here's where it gets interesting, though. Like you said, the person doing the activity and saying, okay, is this acceptable use? Am I going to get in trouble? Like all that. It's a similar thing for the companies I talk with, because it's a situation of, if you're doing this, but you're paying your bill every month,
right?
Do they really care?
Yeah.
So I don't know. The mileage varies, where sometimes they say, no, we're shutting this down, and they do. Other times they don't, because you pay for it. But one other thing bug hunters should think about too, from a Linode perspective, the trust and safety team, sometimes people will get access, spin stuff up, scan, who are not bug hunters, they're threat actors, and they've used a stolen credit card.
Yeah.
And quickly they figure it out and shut it down, but they've scanned for a day. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind when you're doing what you're doing as bug hunters. You're right next to people who aren't. Sometimes there's some friendly fire repercussions. We are sorry.
Well, I like that. I like that, because it is frustrating, you know, especially when you're an ethical researcher. It's like, no, I'm on your team. Stop inhibiting me. But yeah, especially when that infrastructure is also being used negatively, and you know, you're saying it is. It's a difficult balance to strike. But yeah, I think if you can use stuff like Axiom or Shadow Clone or whatever, and not break the terms of service on a lot of these providers, then maybe that's for the best, as much as I hate to say it. Yeah. What I guess let me ask you this: has there been thought, and has Akamai sort of pursued working with the platforms to create an environment where hackers could either go through a VPN or a proxy or something like that, and bypass the WAF to validate their proof of concepts? You know, in kind of working with the platform for that?
To a certain degree, yes. I mean, we've talked, I know, offline a little bit about this, but just brainstorming, lots of different ways to figure this out. As we were saying, the normal mechanisms to allow a commercial DAS customer just aren't there in this context.
Yeah, the IPs are rotating constantly.
Yeah, so you need some way to validate if you're coming directly through the WAF product. So there's some discussions, I will say, they're early, but talking about, part of the question is, if you wanted to do something like this, who registers the bug hunter? Who gives a token? Who manages? There's that question of who could do that. But if something's implemented, then it's a matter of Akamai making it an option for a customer to opt into if they even wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But you would let them buy there. So yeah, we're brainstorming some ideas, because we know it's a pain point.
There's some stuff in this document here about using like TLS fingerprints to try to figure out. I'm trying to think about how all that would work. What is the vision for that?
Well, again, this is me.
Yeah, this is just Ryan.
This is a Ryan thing, brainstorming.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would care I said anything, but like I pinged Ben.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, if we were to do something like this, because the question is, how can we validate somebody that's not an IP?
Yeah.
And there's tools out there that, let's say you're going through a proxy that you can run that will funnel all your traffic, goes over then TLS. Different tools where, oh, wait a second, in TLS, there's all this different data in there where you can have like a comment field. Maybe you put your hacker hand, like something there. The end result is certain parts of your TLS fingerprint will change. And all of a sudden that becomes unique to you. And so I'm mentioning that because in Akamai's WAF product, you can do a bypass list based on a TLS signal.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out low friction.
Yeah. How do you make that simple for the researcher and for the companies that are implementing that?
So I don't know. We are at brainstorming phase. So hopefully they're saying when we're out in Vegas and we're brainstorming with hackers and whatever, maybe there's other ideas, but any way we can do this.
One of the other things that I kind of thought of for this was attacking the problem from the application layer and saying, hey, okay, we've got a set of certificates that trusted researchers have. And then we create our HTTP request, and we add an Akamai researcher header with the signature for that request. Right. And that includes a timestamp and stuff like that. So it can't be like vulnerable to replay attacks. And then we utilize that. It's not going to be perfect because, it's not going to get us past all of our tools aren't going to be able to integrate that signing structure and stuff like that. But at least for like Kaido and Burp, you would be able to have an extension that would allow you to get past Akamai
Right.
to get at the target.
Well, the CDN platforms are able to do client certificate validations.
Mhm.
So
yeah, it makes more sense to do it at the TLS layer, I think.
Well, yeah, it just
Yeah.
depends on how you wanted to implement it. So it is a problem that
Yeah.
should be solved. We gotta keep brainstorming, I guess.
Very tricky.
Yeah.
Very tricky. So dude, you are presenting at Blackhat this year with your daughter. Come on, give me
Woo!
some. That's like dad goals right there.
Absolutely.
Congrats, Isabella, on getting your talk accepted. That's really awesome.
Woohoo!
And congrats to you, Ryan.
Yep.
You've done some Unicode stuff last year as well. Can you give us a teaser of what Lost in Translation is going to look like this year?
Yeah.
I guess by the time this has aired, but it'll already be out. So
yes.
Don't give me a teaser. Give me the good stuff.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll be able to go, I think, download our presentation.
Yeah.
So last year at DEFCON Bug Bounty Village, it was a higher level concept of what are different ways where, back to this order of operation problem, if data goes through some security checks and then later it's changed in some way, that causes a problem, right? So last year we talked about different scenarios. You have like edge side includes. That might change it on the way back out.
Yeah.
There was the HTML entity decoding, which can split, and like there's all sorts of different things. So the one that resonated though was things related to Unicode.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, that's what was interesting. Can we expand it a bit? So over the past year, we were trying to gather stuff. And my daughter, I think, had laughed at me before, like when we're on, socials or doing whatever. And I said, ooh, bookmark. Oh, bookmark. She said, what are you doing? I said, anytime I see cool stuff on our like feeds, I'm like, ooh, bookmark that for later.
Yeah.
And I come back. So just to give kind of a quick run through on what this is, kind of from a agenda perspective. One thing that's interesting is you have to start with URL decoders. Like before you even get to what the character should be, like in its regular form or glyph or whatever. So URL decoders can have different problems. The first one is if it is not multi-byte aware, which you would think, isn't it 2025? What?
Yeah, you think that would be solved already, but really, like multi-byte, I think a deep understanding of Unicode is pretty rare. And I know I talked to him. I think you probably listened to the episode with Matthias and where we talked about this a little bit. So lately it's been coming across the pod a good bit that these multi-byte sequences can be really really impactful. Yeah.
So what was interesting as we were going to prep what do we show people when we're talking about this? Well, just fire up Burp and go to decoder.
Yeah.
It's not multi-byte aware.
Yeah.
You put in UTF-8, you get Moji Bake.
Yeah.
It's like, so we had to get a different extension.
You get, what did you say? Moji what?
Moji Bake. That's what it's called.
What is Moji Bake?
That is when data is translated in a way that it was not encoded and you get gibberish. It's called Moji Bake.
Ah, okay.
I was going to say, you're picking up on the Japanese.
Yeah, I'm like,
so Moji Bake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said that word to Isabella and same thing. She's like, wait, what is that? And so we were researching. It's like, but it has a name. Yeah. So in Burp, you have to use decoder improved. It's got Java Swingline and it properly decodes things. It understands UTF-8 basically. So that's one thing. And there's lots of things that are not fully say multi-byte aware because technically we're just saying really UTF-8 normally. The other one is overlong encoding.
Let me ask a question about that. So multi-byte sequences, that's when you've got %EF, %BC, and then something else, right?
Yep.
And it's got those longer sequences that will create a Unicode character.
Correct.
Okay.
So a great shout out, maybe it'll be in the notes. Sonar Source, they do a lot of great research, but they have a tool. It's a UTF-8 online visualizer. Yeah. It is awesome. It's so fun.
I've seen that before and we've covered it on the pod and I totally forgot about it. And I was having trouble visualizing this in the pod with Matthias and 4 people messaged me and were like, you should use this.
There it is.
Very, very cool piece of software they built there.
Yeah. And it's great because it shows you at the bottom the UTF-8 encoded bytes.
Yeah.
The next thing are the actual raw bytes. And then you have the Unicode code point and the glyph.
Yeah.
So it depends on what layer you want to look at. But it helps you to understand that, wait a second, these 3 individual bytes that are encoded as %80, whatever, they're all in relation to each other. Because there's one that's a leading byte, and then you have a continuation byte.
Yeah.
But it depends on what the character is and what each byte is storing and things like that. But yeah, if you emoji bake it and you just get crap.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is from a defender perspective, if we're going to look at data and make a security decision, if we emoji bake it, we're screwed. But the other thing is, if the application's emoji baking it, that can cause problems. So it depends. Yeah, because there were scenarios, maybe get into this.
I guess that makes sense. You're perceiving it as a Unicode character, but they're perceiving it as ASCII, that's interesting.
If they treat each byte as an individual ASCII character and they ignore the leading bit, it's just 7-bit ASCII, then you can get an ASCII character and 2 who knows what characters that may be thrown out.
Yeah.
So when you think about control line feed injections with response splitting, that's where we saw a crazy bug bounty report.
I want to say, was that a report on X or on Twitter back in the day? By File Descriptor, I think was the guy that did it.
I don't remember the handle, but the one I was looking at, it was bug bounty versus Microsoft.
Yeah.
Said how I got $6,000.
Yeah.
And we had to deal with this. I dealt with the very similar problem at work when I first saw this.
Yeah.
I said, wait a second. I know from a defender, you're trying to do response, injection. You're trying to do a set cookie. You're sending these crazy Chinese characters.
Yeah.
But when it comes out of the app, it's control line feeds. What the heck is happening here? Now, on the one hand, it could be a URL decoder issue, emoji bake, where it's only taking the lowest byte and did it. But the other aspect that we researched that's kind of a related category is what we call Unicode truncation. That's where even if the URL decoder is multi-byte aware, you decode it, you get to what the character is. How's it going to use that character? Is it going to put it in a database? Is it going to put it in memory? And again, most of our customers, they're black boxes, but we can tell that they're doing URL decoding appropriately, but they took that character and all they're doing is taking the least significant byte, treating it as ASCII, and it becomes an ASCII character. So a lot of these control line feed injections, when you see those on cheat sheets, this is why they work, because the app is just saying, nope, we're treating this as ASCII.
Okay, so so there's truncation, and then there's also normalization, and there's things not actually parsing it as multi-byte sequences.
Yep.
There's what's the other one that Matthias mentioned? Overlong.
Yeah. That's a subcategory too of. It's a question in the RFC about how you're supposed to do this. So if anybody, by the time you're listening to this, we're maybe at our talk. The real world analogy we have is a picture we got offline of an Amazon box, and you open it up. There's another Amazon box and a bunch of packaging, and you're looking at it saying, why didn't you just send me that box?
Exactly.
It's the same thing. Overlong encoding is needless padding. So you have an ASCII character, it's a single byte.
Yeah.
You can send it that way. But you can send it in 2 bytes if you wanted, but that other byte, all it's doing is saying, I'm a leading byte, but I don't have any data. The data are.
So just look at that guy.
So the question is, what do you do with that? Either you can fully normalize it back to ASCII, which in my view is better, or you can say, this is bad, I'm going to block it. So the one throwback I gave to my daughter as we were prepping to this, and I said, when I see this sequence of the overlong, I get a shiver in and she said, why? And I said, because back in 2001, the NIMDA worm came out. And what the NIMDA
worm? What's the NIMDA worm?
So whoever named this was real crafty.
Yeah.
It's admin spelled backwards.
So
it's the NIMDA worm. And what it was doing was propagating across Microsoft environments. It would exploit systems through a bunch of different protocols in different ways, but one was through IIS server. They overlong encoded dots and slashes. So the security check would fail because it was overlong, but then it would get normalized after the fact.
Yeah.
And then they could do command injection and all sorts of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
This stuff's not new.
Yeah.
And it's still around.
It's been around for a while, and it will continue to be around because this Unicode thing is tricky. It really is. And there's a lot of there's best fit mappings, there's truncation, there's all sorts of things. One of the things that I think is really interesting also is what you put in here in the doc is the casing related problems, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the gotchas where characters may be different? Simply running like upper or lower on something can transform it in these environments.
Yeah, like you were saying, like confusables and best fit mappings, more people are aware of that over time.
Yeah.
This is something too that I think as a developer, you're not thinking there's a Unicode component to this, but there is. Now, each platform and language, depending on how you're doing upper and lower, and you can be doing upper, I can't remember, full in Python, I can't remember, there's different terms. But when you think from a bug hunter perspective, oh, here's some input, what type of an attack should I do here, right? So this is something when you think about like usernames, they don't want to have you log in as like justin@email.com. I log in as capital J Justin.
Yeah.
And those are separate. No, they're the same. So anytime you think we need to normalize and not have a case sensitive problem, typically they would uppercase or lowercase it. And when it does that, there's case mapping in Unicode. So you can put in a Unicode character. And this was something that was very interesting as well. It's kind of related. It was one of the things we talked about. It was actually on NahumCon this year, right? The ATO Unicode stuff.
Yep.
As we were looking at this and we were trying to generalize it and say, well, could there be an uppercase casing transform component? Not in this particular case, but in general, maybe. But then this dovetails into collations and databases.
Man.
Yeah. So as we were researching that, the interesting thing again now is it's Unicode combining characters. So when you think about let's say you have an A character and it's got an accent graph on it, right? Or umlauts or like whatever it might be. Depending on the normalization that may happen, they may do a decomposition and say, okay, we understand what this glyph is, but when we store it, we're going to store it as ASCII A and an accent graph separately, right?
Okay.
So keep that in mind because with these collations that databases may have, they can have default flags. And we were looking at MySQL because we actually highlight the ATO Unicode example.
This is really
credits.
interesting. Yeah.
So what it'll do is you pass that in, let's say with an A with an accent character. The default flags in MySQL is AI, which is accent insensitive. So even if you pass something in that has an accent on it, it ignores it. So now you just have the base character.
No way.
Yeah.
So MySQL itself is doing that conversion.
Yeah, it's part of the default. So if you're
and it's a part of the default config.
Well,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
dude.
also the other flag is case insensitive. So case insensitive, accent insensitive. Now it depends on the collation, right?
Yeah.
However, so if you're bug hunting, who knows? They may have set their own collation and they may be handling stuff.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But that's a crazy one
I keep on saying
about.
collation. I don't have a firm grip of what collation is. What is a collation?
Yeah, it's hard to describe. Basically, you're checking the equivalency of two characters.
Okay.
So in the basic SQL statement that we did, it's just saying, oh, select in quotes the Unicode character A with the accent equals in quotes ASCII character A.
Okay.
And it's either returning a 0 or 1.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So are these the same character? And when it says 1, oh, they're the same. Oh, look, that's not the same. And then we show if you change the collation when you do the select, and we changed it to be accent sensitive, then it says 0. No, these don't match.
Dude, I am so hyped for this talk right now. This is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it was interesting as we were looking at that because we want to understand, wait, how did this actually work?
There's so many layers to it as well, right? Like, you know, there's the WAF layer, there's the application layer, there's the database layer, you know, there's the browser, right? Like we were talking about, we saw this is only tangentially related, but we saw an exploit come across Google VRP the other day that got disclosed that was taking advantage of ligatures in the default font used in your URL bar.
Nice.
So, you know, there was a Google ligature, you know, to create the Google logo in the font. Yeah. You know, we covered it on the pod. It was like, it was
now
beautiful.
It's ringing a bell.
It was freaking beautiful, man. It was lovely. So there's so many layers to this, dude.
The one last thing, because that's what we were focusing on initially for combining characters or diacritics.
Diacritics, yeah.
The other thing which is interesting for bug hunters is think about the sources and sinks again. If there's a sink where your data is right before, let's say, a greater than character, so you have like a text input that's ending, what if you only put the combining character as your first character? And so what we have here as an example, there's code.
Dude, this is a dream.
Yeah.
Please, yes.
Okay. You can break context, right? So what you can do is you send this Unicode character, which is a reverse full width soldis, or a full width soldus, depending on which way you want it to go. I think
Are
reverse
they the
soldus.
one you have linked in the doc here?
Yeah.
This U0338. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And
Hold on, I gotta look
so
at this.
then
Dude.
it will combine and become a not greater than symbol. Now, the key here, though, is this has to happen server side. There needs to be where the code that's going to be rendered and generated for the web page, including your like whatever input text, it's wrapped in a normalization, and they're adding your character in. So, is it semi-edge case? Maybe. Is
Still,
it
it's
worth a
something
check
to try.
and tooling?
It's something to
Absolutely.
try. You know, absolutely. And I've also thought about this many times, and I've tried to make it work time and time again in scenarios where, you know, you need to get rid of something following your thing. Where I'll put like I'll put a % sign there, right? And I'll try to like get an ampersand, like say I need to get rid of a query parameter that is appended after my specific thing, right? I'll put like a % sign in there, and then it becomes % ampersand, you know, the first character of the query parameter, right?
Right.
And then that's an invalid, you know, URL decoding. So then it freaks out, and sometimes it does weird stuff.
Yeah, right,
you know?
right.
And
I don't know how to decode this.
Yeah, exactly. So this is another thing that we can try with that, because I've always been like, there's got to be something that I can do to affect post. You know, because obviously the ideal situation is you've got like a hashtag or something like that, and you can turn it into the fragment or whatever.
Right.
But you don't always have that, and so all of any primitive like this that could potentially allow you to affect previously hard-coded text that follows your input.
Right. That's all
so
about
interesting, man.
Breaking context, right?
Frick, I love this, dude.
So
oh my gosh.
What we were doing and prepping.
Oh my gosh.
For the talk and doing the research. Is to update tooling, right? We want to give back and, you know, let people use this. So I've worked with James Kettle, so ActiveScan++ for burp users. We already have some pull requests in there. We're making some more. But basically the concept is, and you can adapt this to other tooling, is if you're checking for this behavior, it's figure out, all right, are we talking about confusables? Do we want to see if there's any normalization? Do we want to check for byte truncat? Like, what are we checking for? And essentially, you get a prefix and a suffix that are random strings, send whatever character you want in between, because then the random strings tell you where it is in the return.
Yep.
And you're seeing if it changes in the way that you want it.
If it's transformed.
Yeah. So for example, if you want to see if it does any normalization, you can send the Unicode Kelvin sign. It normalizes under all 4 normalizations. So then you know it's doing something.
That's what I need to know. Okay, Kelvin. Unicode Kelvin. Dang it, guys. Do not make a meme in the freaking Discord about unicorn, please.
I see a t-shirt.
Dude, shut up, Ryan. The Unicode Kelvin sign. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've seen this before, because I think there was
They called it Special K.
Yeah.
It's a Special K polyglot.
Exactly. That's the one. And I believe the first time I was exposed to this actually was Yes We Hack's BitK researcher showed me some really cool transformations in JavaScript, I think, that use that K, where you can lowercase it and it goes to like a normal ASCII lowercase K.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's the same concept. So you can check for everything. Like we had the other example for Unicode truncation, we send a Chinese character.
Yeah.
And if it comes back in between your prefix and suffix as a left curly bracket, maybe you want to try some server-side template injection. Like there's different checks to do. So there should be some tools out by the time our talk's out.
All right. Wow. Definitely interesting stuff there. Gonna be on the lookout for that talk. I'm glad I get a little insight into it now. This is good. This is good. I got to start adapting some of this tooling for Kaido. Very nice, man. I think this last bit about the combining characters is really intriguing to me in my brain. I can feel it in my brain that I need to try to figure out what combinations there are there. Right. I'm sure that's in your talk. I'm excited to see it, man.
Yep.
Let's we've only got a couple more things here. You mentioned, ActiveScan. We talked a little bit about recollapse before, where that's really helpful for normalization tables and creating those kind of vulnerabilities, finding normalization vulnerabilities. What you mentioned SSO, you mentioned usernames and stuff like that. What kind of places do you see this most being effective for the bug hunters? And I guess it affects definitely things like cross-site scripting normalization. But also you've got critical impact with arbitrary account takeover
Right.
if normalization is happening across SSO sign-in.
Yeah. So I think some of these overlap with the discussion about like what are good vulnerabilities that WAF is great at identifying.
Yeah.
Right. So the ATO stuff, again, Akamai's got a different product to
Yeah.
help you account takeovers.
Yeah.
That's not like an injection. It's
Yeah.
a different scenario. Most of what I've seen when we get tickets and we have to triage, it's around all of the, SSRF.
Yeah.
Because enclosed alphanumerics,
Okay.
those get normalized. There's a Unicode or an IDNA element processing there with the URLs that does some normalization. Control line feed injections,
Okay.
and then cross-site scripting. Those are the top three
Those are the top three
that we see not only trying, because we see people try all sorts of crazy stuff with the tools, right? And now you got all these AI agents. It's cheap to test.
Yeah.
But we have to weed out that and say, what are the things actually show impact
That are
and
working.
work?
Yeah, exactly.
And apps do crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. They do.
And how they're transforming data. So we've seen examples where it's Confusables, it's casing. Haven't seen any combining characters yet. Keeping my eye out. But those are the big ones. And then it's like, well, okay, why is it happening? And then that's usually part of our triage. We have to figure out what is going on.
XSS, CRLF,
And SSRF.
SSRF, and then we've got those sort of normalization attacks on SSO and usernames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's
Okay.
normalizing it.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
we'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can find. I definitely think
Yeah.
the combining characters research that you've done, and especially the correlation stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But the combining character stuff definitely has a lot of potential. I think that will result in some bugs.
Yep.
I got to get some of those, into my normal testing routine.
Exactly.
You know?
Get them in your tooling.
Yeah. The last thing that we had really on the list here is CSPs.
Right.
And I think you have a very interesting little piece here about how CSPs can sometimes be implemented at the WAF level, right? You know? Can you talk about the pros and cons of implementing CSP there and what bug hunters need to know about that?
Yeah. Whether it's a quote unquote WAF or just something that's an intermediary that's upstream from the app, right?
Yeah.
Some customers find that attractive because maybe not every app stack they have that can quickly, oh, you're doing CSP, like that's built into some apps, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to do. Other ones it's not. And you want to have a centralized place to have your policies. So from an architecture perspective, it makes sense. For me, when I work, keep hitting this thing.
You're good.
When I work with customers who want to do this, it's a question of what are you trying to achieve with CSP?
Right.
What order do you implement these in? And then where is it where you probably want to do that at what we call origin? That's the customer application.
Yeah.
So anytime you're getting into, we want to nonce data to say, obviously, oh no, this is secure, or hashing or anything like that, that really should be done at origin.
Yeah.
But other stuff is easy and fine. You can push that, what we say, downstream to us, and then we'll send it out to the client. So there's advantages depending on what they want to do with their policy. Where this gets interesting is if you have that intermediary and it's auto-noncing data originating from the app, you can imagine, right? In the inline cross-site scripting. So yeah, I ran into this with testing with some other third-party security products that were doing this.
Yeah.
Because a customer was evaluating, and I kind of pointed this out because I was able to do reflected XSS and it auto-nonced it for me. And I said, I don't think this is the best idea.
That's very interesting. Yeah, stored XSS, reflected XSS. I guess really what that auto-noncing feature would be intended to stop is DOM XSS, right? Because that's the only scenario where that's really going to become handy. But
the only kind of reference I will make here, again, I'm name dropping, that XSS Doctor.
Yeah.
Right? And he's doing all this
my
cool
boy,
stuff. Exactly.
My boy XSS Doctor.
So we were chatting on Discord a little bit, and this was coming up, and we were just going over stuff. And he had made a comment about, in general, like CSP, ways to bypass it, and generally saying, oh, like if I see a nonce, it's like, is it worth my time to try and do this because they're noncing it?
Yeah.
And so I just made that comment. I said, just because you see a nonce, test.
Yeah.
It may be worth. Now, are they in this scenario? Maybe not, but they might be. And then the nonce does not matter. It'll auto nonce. So it's something, again, from a tooling perspective. Maybe you could test a few things and see.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't just give up on that.
Yeah, because it may just be auto noncing it. It might be considering it apart. Or there could be some like don't even know if it's middleware, something, backsideWare. I don't know,
Right.
that after everything's done, it's going back through and noncing it. So there's lots of
Right.
ways that attackers' input could get nonced in those sort of situations.
Yep.
Wow, very interesting stuff. And then you also, one of the things that you kind of have access to with Akamai is the perspective of looking at these CSP violation reports.
Yeah.
What kind of juicy stuff have you found in those? And I always thought that that's a really cool vector, because if you were able, even as an attacker, to inject into that, CSP reporting environment, you can trigger a CSP violation and then, get data out that way. So there's lots of cool tricks.
Yeah. Right. So we talked about the scenario of if they wanted Akamai to add the CSP policies, which we can.
Yeah.
Then if you want to do any sort of reporting to beaconing, right?
Yeah.
You can send that wherever you want. It doesn't have to be back to us or whatever, but some customers opt to have it come through us, and they can have us actually act as like a CSP report endpoint, and then they can actually see stuff.
Interesting.
Or it goes all the way through, but with that, we had to talk with them and say, okay, well then when that's coming through, you don't have to block it. Like just come on through, and then they have a reporting that's back behind us, right? So it's an architectural question. Now, what's interesting, what you were just saying is I can look at all sorts of CSP reports. And if you're familiar with what those reports look like in the JSON, different, policy things. And so I'm interested in, of course, like samples. When it says report sample, what was the blocked URI? There's a few things I go and look at, and there's interesting stuff that you can see that people are trying to beacon, or what are they trying, a new technique, whatever it might be. Well, what's also funny though is exactly what you just said. All this tooling will take anything and every input and whatever and inject everywhere. It's inject everything. And so I'll be looking at something that, what was the original CSP policy? Cross-site scripting tag. They're trying to anything. You know what I mean? Because maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll pop somewhere. So that's part of weeding out. It's like, that's bogus. That's just an attacker futzing around with the report JSON coming back. So it's noise.
Yeah, well, sometimes those logs can end up. I mean, we talked about a blind XSS scenario before. Those can go into like janky backend systems where they process it, and that's why blind XSS is so crazy. Yeah, exactly. So there's always that impact there as well. Very, very interesting. One thing you said before that I didn't have on the list, but I do want to circle back to, is one of the first sort of interactions that I had with a WAF as a hunter was trying to bypass a WAF via locating the origin server. How often do you see that misconfiguration in clients? Like where they're not just whitelisting communication with Akamai, or something changes. Is that and I guess I don't know. My question that I want to ask is like, how can I find the freaking origin server? But I don't know if you're going to be able to give me much with that.
Not really. Mainly, I'll plead that that's not my area of expertise. That's a platform question.
Okay. All right.
Get off the hook on that one.
Yeah.
That it is in a sense now. It's supposed to be a typical onboarding.
Yeah.
That you talk with the customer, because we have a lot of customers that are only on performance.
Yeah.
They want us as a CDN.
Yeah.
They're not even yet. So okay, fine.
Right. Yeah, we don't even think about that as hackers, because we're like, Akamai WAF, but it's, originally it was a CDN, right?
Serves a purpose,
Yeah.
makes everything faster.
Yeah.
So yeah. But security side of the house, that's a discussion when there's onboarding. And to say, look, if you don't want people to reach your origin and get around the edge network, then you have to figure out how to configure that. So they know about it. Now, the question is, okay, why wasn't it implemented? Sometimes it's hard. You have to configure network firewalls to figure out how to talk with the edge systems and make sure that they're always set up properly, right? And sometimes I guess that doesn't happen, or things change. There's also scenarios where typically the edge network, to make everything faster, it knows where servers are that are geographically close to you and all of that. So, I don't work on that side of the operations and working with customers on configuring, but if you only configured it to work with certain Akamai servers because they're in your region, but then somebody goes through a different one and you're just not restricting, I don't know. But being able to bypass that, it's an issue. So that's why we tell customers, no, if you want this, we call it Site Shield. You got to configure Site Shield to say we only talk, with Akamai. Now,
directly.
yeah,
Yeah.
the other scenario there is you were thinking typically, oh, I'm a hacker, I'm doing web application attacks. There's also the issue of denial of service.
Yeah.
That if they know the origin and go directly to it, now in this case, if they find an IP, they can still slam it.
Oh yeah.
Now from an
Like
application
DDoS it or
attacker,
whatever,
you can't actually get in to do what you wanted. But if they're just wanting to flood, they can do that anyway. So again, there's different DDoS scenarios where we can front end and we have a whole different system for doing that. But but that's been an issue with any CDN WAF. I've seen tools out there with like Cloudflare trying to find, if you can find the original source IP before they onboarded, that's the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and that's often in the DNS history. You can go back and look before they onboarded their WAF. You can say, oh, where was that IP? Oh, it's still there.
Yeah, the internet never forgets.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay, I said last thing, but I did come up with one more thing. One of the, by nature of these WAFs, it's important that it's necessary that you have to be able to have some routes that you hit that return data from the WAF rather than from the actual origin. Something to do like your bot check and stuff like that. That has become a very interesting attack surface for attackers, and I've spent a good amount of time looking at the /CDN CGI endpoints and stuff like that, right?
Okay. Right.
I guess what is your and this once again, this might be a product question rather than the researcher side, which is kind of where you're at.
Right.
But running a bug bounty program yourself,
right?
That I imagine is very high value attack surface to you. And it is would it be possible maybe for us to get some additional introspection into what those endpoints are exposed on every host?
Ooh, yeah, good question. Well, it is important, one thing that you just mentioned, that Akamai does have a bug bounty program.
Yeah.
Right now it's scoped just for the platform.
Yeah.
But also Linode had a long.
Yeah, excellent program. I've worked with them. Yeah.
So that's within scope of what we're doing as well. So I don't know. That's a good question. It's a scoping question.
Yeah.
Right. We set up also a sandboxed environment that has different origin setups with different stacks, and also from the protocol perspective that we want to have Nginx, Apache, Node.js. But we have a whole system set up where you can test and stuff echoes back, and so you can see what's happening.
That's interesting.
A hat tip to James Kettle, who's doing his research. We talked. I triaged his vuln. He found that he's talking about a Blackhat.
Yeah.
So we have an area set up for this, which will help to identify these types of situations and gives you back some debugging information to see exactly what made it to origin, how did it change, how's it coming back. So it's not full blown. It is more of a product question on all these different things that may potentially have problems. But we're looking to expand the scope.
Yeah.
So
the WAF currently is not in scope. Like if we find vulnerabilities, let's say on those endpoints that need to be exposed,
right?
That are under a customer's domain but are actually Akamai code. Right. Those are currently not in scope.
Correct.
It's
a product question now.
Yeah.
I am working to get it within scope.
Yeah.
Part of the question is, okay, what scope do you put around WAF?
Right. Because there are some programs that'll just be like, all right, here's $25 per WAF bypass.
High volume, low value.
Yeah.
We don't
really go in that direction.
We don't really want to get in that game because part of when you think about the day-to-day business of WAF, and yes, a bit of whack-a-moling with some of the detections, that's day-to-day business. That's not something we deem as a evasion. And some of this is internal terminology, and I'm not sure, maybe this is something that I just use, but the way I look at these are the day-to-day stuff like that, where, oh, that's an interesting cross-site scripting vector. Okay, we need to catch that. That's a bypass. Evasion is something deeper in the platform, protocol, processing. And the way I say it is, if my team can't fix it, it's an evasion because we have to get with engineers. Whole different scope and timelines. And so we don't want to get into the bounties for bypass. Maybe we'll do some specials. I've seen that before. Like, hey, for the next whatever, here, send us.
Give us cool techniques.
Yeah, but right now it's focusing more on lower level kind of protocol bypassing kinds of things.
That's fun research though. It's a good research target. So Glad you guys are running a program on that. Yeah.
One other thing I'll mention, actually, this is going to come out, I guess, after we're in Vegas. The current state of the program, right? We had it private for a while. Now it's not private. It's on HackerOne. You can find our page. But it was invite for a while. But now anybody who kind of asks, we haven't turned anybody away. Like if you say, hey, can I come to your program? We'll just let you in. And then there's a little different information where it gives you about our sandbox and you do all that stuff. So we are right on the fence to being full-blown
public program.
We're working our way over that fence. But anyways, I plan when I'm in Vegas talking with people to let them know. So if you're talking with people and they say Akamai, you can say, oh, you can ask to join the program. They can join.
Heck yeah, dude. I'm excited for that. I think that'll be great. I think it's really important for these types of software to have, bug bounty programs. And I know a public program is a big step. And you got to deal with a lot of, reported flux and stuff like that. But
it's a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, whenever you guys go public, let me know. I'll give you a shout out. I owe you one for coming on the pod and for showing me a good time up here today. So.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Dude, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, wait, we got to
hold on. Yeah, we got to for the end of the episode. Let me get the hold on. All right, well, we'll call it a wrap there. Oh, you guys can see. Here we go. This is going to be the thumbnail right here. 3, 2, 1. Nice. Very good. All right. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Great episode. And that's a wrap on this episode of Critical Thinking. Thanks so much for watching to the end, y'all. If you want more critical thinking content, or if you want to support the show, head over to ctbb.show/discord. You can hop in the community. There's lots of great high-level hacking discussion happening there, on top of masterclasses, hack-alongs, exclusive content, and a full-time Hunters Guild if you're a full-time hunter. It's a great time, trust me. All right, I'll see you there.